Greetings and welcome to week 8. This week we're going to change our focus a little bit from the theories that we have been dealing with, liberalism and realism, to a new lens and a more recent one than its liberal and realist cousins, and that lens is constructivism. Constructivism is interesting and it's hopeful, and for me it's maybe my favorite in this sense. The constructivists believe that social relationships are incredibly important, and that we determine the relationships that we have with other states. Now, when you say that, then what that means is that relationships can change, and that we have the power to change those relationships between states. It's not easy, and it will take strong leadership on both sides, but it is possible. So whereas institutionalists look at a problem and they think, well, if we put an institution together, we can manage this problem. And realists look at the security dilemma maybe and say the way to manage that security problem is the balance of power, possibly. Constructivists see it a little bit differently, in that they feel that not only can we manage a problem, but we can solve the problem. And so the goal shouldn't be just a continuous state of management, but working towards solutions so that you don't have to worry about the problem anymore. We're going to focus, so that's the theory that we're going to look at, that's your content. And then we're going to focus on a situation brief on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And in my eyes, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one that has been with us for decades, and that has been managed, and there have been accords signed, and there have been hopes for peace, and there have been plans, but the reality is that the conflict still is with us, and the solution to the problem has not yet been found. So as we look at a situation that has gone on for 6 decades and has not found a solution, we're going to mix that in with constructivism to see, okay, can some of the ideas of the constructivists be useful here, and is it possible after all of these years to change the social relationship and the understanding between the Israeli and the Palestinians in order to solve the problem and lead to a lasting peace? It is a huge question, and it is a difficult one to answer, and any answer that is found, any solution that we come upon, is going to be difficult, and it's going to be complicated, and it's going to be hard. But constructivists feel that if we can change that social relationship, then we can change the reality. So that's your content, constructivism, your situation brief. Your map is going to be the 21 countries of Eastern Europe. Due to the fact that I missed last week's class, for those of you at Graded, we didn't get a chance to do that, and so we're going to continue this week focusing on Eastern Europe. 2 things that I need you to be paying attention to in the news. And kids, what a fascinating time it is to be following international affairs and to be alive. You have the Middle East, which is continuing to boil and in some places to blow up. What's fascinating is that in Libya, the West really has been able to diplomatically get the rest of the international community on board through the Security Council and pass a resolution that places a no-fly zone over Libya. Now, the idea is that it's a humanitarian cause. That the no-fly zone is meant to protect the civilians within Libya who the West charges were being killed by the forces of Muammar Gaddafi. In order to enforce a no-fly zone, though, you have to create it. And in order to do that, you have to physically attack and destroy the air defenses of the country of Libya. That is happening now. Along with that, the tanks and the armored machines that are on the ground that the Gaddafi's forces are using are also being attacked and being destroyed. So in today's paper, it says that the first stage of the coalition's goal has been met, in that the no-fly zone is essentially by this point established, and it's safe for planes from France, the United Kingdom, and the United States to fly over Libya to make sure that Libyan planes are not attacking the people in Libya. Now, this is a very Western view that I am giving you, and the papers that I'm reading are mostly from the West. So you hear bits and pieces of Gaddafi's side, but you don't hear his full argument as he may lay it out. But the international community is pretty well solidified and pretty unified in the face of Gaddafi's aggression. Having said that, now that violence has ensued, countries are starting to call for an end to the violence and for diplomacy to return. And so China and Russia and Brazil and a few other countries, India, have asked for an end to the hostilities, an end to the violence, and for talking and for diplomacy to continue. Now, whether that happens or not, we will see. But the coming days and weeks are going to open a lot of questions for us. One, sovereignty is clearly being broken. Is that okay if the international community, through the Security Council, sanctions it? So, does Libya forfeit sovereignty because the UN says so? Okay. Two, what is the interest of the Western powers? Is it really humanitarian in nature? Is it to remove Gaddafi? Is it to secure oil? Is it to provide stability in the wider Middle East? We're not sure. So those are two interesting things to be watching. How that develops, and not only how it develops, how it's justified. Looking east, Bahrain continues to be a center of conflict, and it's fascinating there because remember that Bahrain, the tiny little island, 70% is Shiite. So you have Bahrain in the middle of the Persian Gulf, right off the coast of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, Sunni power, but with a Shiite minority that's considerable, has been allied with Bahrain, as the United States, with the ruling party in Bahrain, which is the ruling family, which is Sunni. Then you have Iran. And Iran is trying to empower the Shiites to take control of Bahrain, because that would strengthen Iran in the face of the United States and in the face of Saudi Arabia, and weaken the United States and Saudi Arabia in the face of Iran. That's good for Tehran. But Saudi Arabia last week put troops into Bahrain. Once again, is that a breaking of sovereignty? Probably not, because the Bahraini government invited the Saudi Arabians, but the Shiites say, yes, it is. It's an act of war. So you have then the Sunnis in Saudi Arabia who are trying to maintain control of the tiny island of Bahrain. And so you have this great power game being played out between Saudi Arabia and Iran as nation states, but also between Sunni and Shiite as far as religion goes, between Arab and Persian in some ways. And you have that being played out not directly between Saudi Arabia and between Iran, but indirectly in the state of Bahrain. Fascinating. Third, Yemen is on the verge, it seems, of blowing up as Libya has in the past weeks. The government of Yemen has forcibly put down its people. Many have died, and so that is a place to continue to keep an eye on, because what happens then if Yemen explodes, and how can the international community, which just interceded in Libya to protect civilians, what do they do in the face of Yemen aggression towards their own people? Once again, fascinating. And then you have the ongoing situation in Japan, and the nuclear meltdown that was caused by, the partial meltdown that was caused by the tsunami, that was caused by the earthquake, has raised a ton of questions. One, what's this going to do to the price of oil? Two, what's this going to do to the future of nuclear energy? Three, what's this going to do to the future of any attempt to halt global warming? Because nuclear energy was seen as one of the key ways to limit carbon dioxide emissions from the burning of fossil fuels. Now, because of this disaster in China, that may be a less tenable option. So it is a fascinating time anywhere you look across the world. And the effects of what's happening in the Middle East and also the effects of what's happening in Japan are going to have long-reaching consequences. And so it is, once again, I will say, a fascinating time to be doing what we're doing and to be doing the work which we are engaged in right now. Your writing is getting better. I'm going through your journals as we speak. It is a pleasure to see you grow as writers and as thinkers, and we will continue our work in getting you better as analytical thinkers of international affairs. So, have a good week 8, and I will look forward to continuing to work with you, and I will see you online. Have a good week.